Cool. Well, let's jump in. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go through a few just intro slides here, and then we'll dive right into it and get to know Anna a little bit. I'm really excited. This is our first time we're teaching a public course. Well, for about 2 years, we, after the pandemic hit, we all remember that, mid-March, we pretty much kind of went on hiatus, for a month or two, right? Like many other businesses. But what we did do, since we didn't know what to do, is we launched a free course for people who were misplaced or out of work due to COVID-19. And so that was great. But, since then, we've been so busy building courses and teaching our corporate clients that we have not offered any public live courses since that time. So I'm excited to announce we're doing that again, and even more excited to announce that that'll be taught by Anna. And so let's get into it a little bit here. So first of all, I do want to wish everyone here on the webinar. It looks like we got a few dozen people here, so thanks for joining. I want to wish you happy holidays, wherever it is that you're dialing in from, however you celebrate. This time of year, we celebrate with you. Looking forward to a peaceful and prosperous 2022 and some good time with family before the year ends. We had an exciting little milestone here. A couple of weeks ago, we turned 3. So that means we survived the terrible 2s as a business. And so on December 4th, we hit the 3-year birthday mark. So that was exciting for us. We were looking into it. I think 40% of businesses, according to the US Small Business Administration, don't make it to their 3rd birthday. And that's not even considering a pandemic. So we consider ourselves fortunate to have made it thus far and to be growing and continuing to expand and adding more team members here, bringing in talented people like Anna to help us grow our mission, which is to help people learn the language of data. It's such an important skill to be able to have in today's world. It really is not optional anymore. And that's true of people in just about every industry and every department of every company of every industry. We need to be able to work effectively with data now. And it isn't just about our jobs, right? It's also about the world we live in, being able to help our families stay healthy and thrive, understanding what issues we need to solve within our communities and getting to work doing that. Even our own personal lives, lots of things we can do to continue to develop ourselves using data, many different ways to maybe track our fitness or our health or our finances. And so data is such a critical language now. And, many of us, like myself included, did not get a formal education. Not true of Anna, as we'll see, but I was a mechanical engineering student at UCLA a long time ago. And I don't think they came close to teaching me all the things I needed to know in order to work effectively with data in today's environment. So that's our mission. We're trying to close this massive education gap, partnering with other organizations who are doing that as well, bringing in, hopefully, as much as possible, many more talented individuals to help us do that. So we do that a variety of ways. One of the ways is through our courses, as we're going to talk about, but we also like to put some free content out there, for anyone. I mean, it shouldn't just be people that can afford these courses. So we're going to continue to put free content out there. I'm really excited. Actually, today, Ali Torban, who is this really talented data designer. In fact, let me move our videos over there. There she is. Ali just has been working on the Illustrated Guide to Data Literacy, brand new episode of Becky and her talking plant fern, teaching some of the basic concepts of data. That just showed up on our site this morning. So check that out. And that's one of the ways in which we try to get the word out, about important concepts. The episode today, the comic strip that she published, is all about the base rate fallacy. So check that out. It's a really important concept, especially now with COVID and trying to understand false positives and false negatives and how many people do or don't have it. And, that's an important concept that really has come to the forefront in these past couple of years. Yeah, thanks, Josh. I love them too. And actually, we're going to be working with her even more next year. We're working right now to get some plans in place for, maybe even a comic strip, like a book you can get. So, and thanks, Kieran, for the happy birthday message. Appreciate that a lot. Yeah, and there's Ali. Actually, Ali's in the chat. So say hi to Ali there. Nice to see her joining as well. There you are. Yeah, so some great stuff there. And, just, again, finding creative, fun, engaging ways, making data less scary, making it more approachable and interesting and relating it to our lives and what we're doing. And there's Becky too, who's commenting in on the chat. So, there's a bit about our team. Ali is, as I mentioned, there she is. And then Becky and I, who work together as a husband and wife, a tag team here to grow this business. We're really lucky. We brought on board an operations manager this past October, Megan Hanno, as you see there, and she is really helping us take a lot of things to another level. Even in the first quarter, she's been rolling up her sleeves and helping to, she launched 17 key traits of data literacy in her first month, which was a bit more than what we were hoping for. So that was great. And so a lot more good things coming from this team. And as well as, we also added Susan Gracia. She's a very experienced data trainer, a PhD in the field. And so she has been teaching for Northeastern University for many years. She has been leading a lot of our corporate client sessions with organizations around the world, Netherlands, Middle East, United States, really helping us take that load and, bring these corporate groups together. Okay, so that's really something she's been helping a lot with there. So very, very thankful for these talented people and their support. So right now, our core course offering is these 4 levels, these 4 steps. We start with this foundation, data literacy fundamentals, really just helping people understand what is data, how does it apply to me, how do teams of people work together to convert it from raw form into something more usable as we look to make decisions and chart our course forward. And so that goes into other topics like what are the different types of analysis, what are ways to display data and the pros and cons of each of those. So it's a great entry point, a way to break down some of those brick walls in front of what we like to call data phobic individuals. And there are so many of them. We feel your pain, it feels like there's this data revolution happening. And so, I need to be able to join in on that, but how do I do that? Is there a way I can get started? That's what data literacy fundamentals is all about. And then we step up from there. Level 1 is all about reading and interpreting charts and graphs. Level 2, this big jump where we roll up our sleeves now and start to work with raw data, spreadsheets, SQL queries, Excel, Tableau, Power BI, start to figure out how to use those tools, but also how they relate. What are some of the ways in which they are helping us do some very similar things with tables of data? Tool agnostic, but also, leveraging tools. Third and final core course at this point is all about communicating data, right? So dashboards when we have multifaceted views, data stories when we need to create some kind of a narrative arc. And we're building out these on-demand courses right now, but we're also doing them live and in person. When we talk about that fundamentals course, which we're launching next month, there's a number of topics there. We're going to break them out one session at a time. And you really get to focus in on each one of these topics, starting with just what's the overall goal of data, working with it. How are we leveraging data in a useful way? Moving on to see how our minds work and ways to combine intuition actually with our analysis so that we can be using both of those powerful human thought engines. And then from there, continuing to round out some of those good skills to get started, building some of that core knowledge at the very beginning there. So as I mentioned, we have these on demand. If you really prefer that self-paced experience, you can go ahead and get those courses and get started with those. But what we found, since we launched those on-demand courses is people really still love the live instructor-led kind of experience. It's been pretty much all virtual since the pandemic hit. We hope to get back to in-person soon. I've seen other data trainers out there have been starting to do that. I'm hoping that that'll happen maybe next year. But for now, we're really built out with the visual side of things, with virtual side of things rather. And so we do have an upcoming live course that's going to be open to the public. It's going to be Data Literacy Fundamentals, and it's going to be every Monday and Wednesday, starting on January 10th, ending on February 2nd, about an hour and a half for each session. You're going to have that time with the live instructor, as well as time to connect with your group members. We're going to give all of the participants access to the on-demand course, also a copy of the book and other materials that go along with the course. But really, it's about that group experience, conversations, comparing notes, sharing some of the work that you're doing, seeing what others are doing to build out your network and to round out your skills, and then having time with an instructor. And so that's why I'm really excited today to say that this was an incomplete slide because the other person that we needed to add into the view here is Anna, who has joined us today. So a bit about Anna. Right now, she's at Netflix. She manages content analytics there. She's spent time in the past at Comcast. She's based out of Denver. She's got an education in data. So as I mentioned, I didn't get a formal education in data, but she sure did. She has a master's in data analytics from Colorado State, and also some undergraduate degree in business from University of Colorado at Denver. And what are her specialties? Well, she really loves building, developing, and leading technical teams focused on data science and business intelligence, and then also troubleshooting and conducting deep analytics to uncover new opportunities, those gems hidden in the data. So there you have it. And as I mentioned, she's joined us today. So I'll stop talking now. And I'd like to welcome you, Anna, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll get to that last one in a minute there, where we're going to have a little discount for you all. But I'll stop sharing my screen now because I'd like to just have a quick conversation here with Anna. So welcome to the webinar, Anna. And nice to see your face again. And just curious, maybe could you start off by just introducing yourself? I gave you the background slide, but tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're excited to talk about. Maybe help us get to know you a bit.
Sure. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be here. It's exciting that the course is almost here. So background, well, in the beginning, so I'm actually from a very large family. I grew up in upstate New York. That's where most of my family still is. I'm the youngest of 7. So big family. Like you said, I live in Denver, but I actually lived in the Pacific Northwest for some number of years. I actually went to school in Seattle and University of Washington for a couple of years. Currently live in Denver, but I spend a lot of time in California because that's where my work is. Mm-hmm. So I'm married. I have 2 kids. I love, go Huskies. I guess it's actually go Buffaloes now for me. So Blue Huskies. So I love snowboarding. I love video games. I love reading. I love traveling. It's interesting, right? Like from a professional background, I did not start in data, and my bachelor's is actually in business. I love business. I love the process of solving business problems and outcomes and things like that. So that's where I started. And I happened to get an information systems management specialty because I was always good with computers, whatever that means. So I had that specialty, and I happened to learn about databases. I learned SQL. I learned about relational databases, and I was working as a process analyst. And I was the only one on the team who knew how to actually get the data out of the databases, and so I became a data professional at that point. And so it's just grown from there, and my interest has grown from there with business intelligence, going down to what I'm doing now, which is deeper data science type work. But and then I went and got my master's in the field. But it didn't start out that way, right? It started out with, how can I better solve these problems? Oh, there's information to be had. There's knowledge to be had. How do I get it? And so some formal training, lots of on-the-job learning, lots of just figuring things out, right? Like, develop my Google foo skills, right? To go and find.
You were an Excel guru for a while, probably, I bet, huh? That it was you got asked to do every data related thing imaginable because word got around that you knew what you were doing with data.
Exactly. And the Excel was strong, right? Very much learning about all those features, and then finding the other tools that would actually do it a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Graduating from there. Yep. So, but I think that's great that you started from a business perspective, right? Trying to solve real problems, not trying to do, just, busy work with data. It's really about figuring out how to move forward and grow the business. So that's really what it's all about when we're talking about applying data in our careers most often. So, a lot of people, there's this kind of aura around FANG, right? FAANG, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. There we go. I think I got them all. So, you've been in that environment. So talk to us a little bit about like, what's that like? Maybe handle, take care of some of that mystique for us and help us feel the pain and the excitement of being in a large technical organization like that. Working with data. What are some stories? What are some interesting anecdotes, or just in general, what's a day-to-day like doing that?
So it is really interesting and it's fun. Like it's a great place to be as a data professional as at this point in my career, because there's so much to learn, and every day there is something that somebody is doing where it's really bleeding edge, right? Like where I've only read about this in journals, but they're applying this particular technique to solve a particular business problem or answer a question that if somebody had asked me, I would have said, we can't answer that question. Shows what I know, right? Like, they've gone and they've figured out how to do it. At Netflix, we obviously have massive amounts of data, right? And just the engineering skill that people apply in order to use it, like you really start seeing those lines blur between what is software engineering and what is data engineering and what is data analyst work versus just general business analyst work. And so, it can be a little painful at times because it is bleeding edge. So sometimes it doesn't go as well as you might like. Sometimes you'll do something and then you can't find any real practical applications for it. But one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of times folks will think that everybody who's working at these companies, like they wake up, they get their coffee, and then they do some statistical analysis for fun. And then they go off and they, build an algorithm that will build a movie or something, right? It generally doesn't actually work that way.
All recommendation engines, that's it, right?
That's it. We just make a ton of recommendation engines all the time, right? And so it actually isn't. It isn't like that. And I've noticed that even from a data professional standpoint, where we have individuals who are just flat out brilliant, right? Like where I will be having a conversation with them and I will definitely feel like I need to go read a book or something because I have no idea what they're talking about.
Get a third degree before our next meeting.
Right, exactly. Like, should I get a PhD in something? I don't know, something. But where they're experts in their field, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're fully data fluent, right? So like my field, analytics or business intelligence, they might struggle to kind of be like, well, what do you do? Right? Like, how do you do that? So it's as strange to them as well. And the same goes with the business professionals as well, where they may not be as fluent as you might think that they would be. And so, our job is to help bridge that gap for them, whether it's through the technology or whether it's through helping them become more data literate so that they can make better decisions. So
I love what you're saying there, because, to your point, I mean, everybody's an expert in something within a team or an organization, but nobody's an expert in all of it. I mean, there's just no way you see all of the angles and really have fluency in every one of the different kind of avenues that need to be traversed, right? So then, because of that, I think a lot of people maybe who are saying to themselves, well, data is not my thing. Yeah, but maybe the business is, or the relationships are, or the organization is, and it's the way it operates, or the processes, so those things are something that need to be brought to the table, because to your point, the PhD data scientist may not really know those things. And so if you connect those dots together with them, then you end up getting somewhere together. So then in that sense, data being such a great team sport. So people always want to talk tools. I think that we try to go beyond that. We try to talk framework and process and mindset. But I'm curious, what are some of the tools you use? Or are you making your own tools? Or are you spending a lot of time crunching numbers with this or that tool? Does that change from month to month? Tell us what's your toolkit right now?
Yeah, I'm leading a team, right? And so generally they have all the fun and cool tools. But when I'm doing an analysis or I'm digging into something, my go-tos at the moment for work are definitely Python, which I'll do through Jupyter Notebooks. I just find it very easy to get the data in and then do whatever it is I need to do, whether it's just very basic things or very advanced things. I can do it all right there, which I like because I don't like having lots of tools open. And then as soon as I need to visualize it or start telling the story, Tableau is usually my go-to. I started off not liking it at all. Like my first tool was like SSRS way back in the day, for those who were familiar with that. And I was like, what is this? Like, what am I supposed to do with this Tableau? But now it's like my right hand as to, I can't analyze anything without having it open. And then there's like my general techniques are unfortunately not terribly exciting. I don't do a ton of machine learning models these days because I'm leading the team, but they'll normally be in the space of statistical type essentials, right? So like measures of central tendency and distribution and variance, right? Like that tends to answer 90% of the questions that someone might have.
I think
and then if I'm starting to go into like driver analysis and things like that, I'll start, doing some models to help me understand that a little bit. But
yeah. So you heard it here, folks, right? So someone who's working in FANG with data, a lot of it is really using the core set of tools, and I found that to be the case as well. Some of those basic descriptive and inferential statistical methods. Yes, we go beyond that, but 90-10, not even 80-20. And that's true. We're just trying to understand what's happening and model that. And then the more sophisticated algorithms and models do come into play, but that's not 90% of the job. It's just really not. And that
absolutely not
tends to be the sexy thing and the thing that everyone tries to Google and learn. And there's good reason to do that. But also, we really need to have a good foundation in the basics. Learning all those exotic tools without having a foundation in the basics, that's a good recipe for getting it all wrong. So
that is such a good point, right? Because we are getting more individuals who have only gone that route, right? Like they have learned the very advanced stuff. They've done the advanced mathematics. They are machine learning experts and that sort of thing. And they struggle because they didn't get the basics, right? Like as to, 90% of your day is going to be cleaning data, ingesting data, figuring out, like trying to understand what the actual questions you're trying to answer are, because the business is not going to come to you with this fully formed, I would like a model that, right? So it's a steep learning curve. To be able to apply that the knowledge.
So this idea of like, dealing with all the ambiguity when we're trying to work with data in an organization. And to your point, trying to figure out what kinds of questions we should be asking. What's a way to think clearly about this challenge we're faced with? What are some of the limitations maybe that are coming along with the raw data or our approach, or what we can do or can't do? So talk to me about that. How do you kind of whack through those weeds and get to somewhere where you're making progress?
It is a lot of conversation. Like it is a lot of conversation. Most of my job is conversations and relationships. Like that is, and to get the context to understand, you've come to me and you've asked for a huge data set, right? And you've asked me to build you a predictive model for XYZ. And by me, I mean my team. And I need to know why. Like why? Like what is the problem you're trying to solve? What are you gonna do with it? What are the actions that you're going to take from it? Because like by understanding those types of questions and like what the outcomes are going to be is where I can really figure out what are the techniques we need to apply. How clean does the data need to be, right? Because a lot of times we'll make the mistake of it needs to be perfect. Like generally it does not need to be perfect. I'll like call it like analytic grade and like street reporting grade, right? Like there is a difference, right? Analytic grade, generally directional is okay, right?
Right. Single A, double A, triple A. Hey, we don't always have to be at the major leagues here.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's a huge difference in time, like getting that last couple of percentage points of perfection, right? Can be a really big difference. Yeah. Exactly. And so it's a lot about asking the questions and the conversations and really figuring out what the business need is. And then you think about how am I going to, what data am I going to pull, and how am I going to think about it, and how am I going to structure it, and what techniques am I going to apply? Generally, by the time you get done with the conversation, what you thought was going to be like a 6 months project is like 10 minutes, right? Like it's like, oh, okay, yeah,
that's all you needed? Oh, well, in that case,
here you go.
What I love about that message, to me, that's a very hopeful message for someone who feels like data is not their thing. And the reason is because maybe people are your thing. In which case, you're invited to the table because
you've got a huge leg up.
Conversations, questions, listening, interpreting needs, those are the pieces of the puzzles that are most often missing. And then we can add to that. Okay, now that we've understood where we're trying to go, what are some of the data type questions we can resolve now to match the data to the need? But yeah, you don't need to be some already expert in some kind of data science algorithm. You really need to be a person who can think clearly, establish relationships, and use those to understand what's going on. Yeah, I found that to be true as well. A lot of times we assume and we call that the human element, adding the human element to the equation, to the chemical mixture. You take that out and you're really going to get nowhere. Loving some of these chats coming through here. We had a quick little question about people's favorite tools. We see SSRS there from Oscar. Now he's using Power BI. People using Alteryx and Tableau. Some Excel users in there too, and Click users as well. So we see a nice blend and mixture. And what I found too, when you're working in an organization, is pretty much all those tools that I just listed are available in large, or say Fortune 500 companies. You probably can get access to almost all of those tools. Maybe one or two you can't, but it isn't about that. And so it's about the thought process, and it's about thinking through how to work with data. So speaking of that thought process and the fundamentals and getting started, talk to me about this course you're about to teach next month. What are you most excited about? And yeah, what do you think you might be adding to the mix that they wouldn't get if they just took the on-demand course?
Yeah, I'm really excited at the idea of teaching a course with people who have taken the initiative to say, I want to get better at this, and I'm going to take my time, and I'm going to willingly, voluntarily sign up for this course. Because normally when I'm teaching folks data literacy, it's often at the behest of somebody else. Somebody else has said, this team needs to learn more data literacy. Can you please go help them get better at it? So I'm very excited about the idea of the voluntary nature of the attending, and the initiative that it takes to just raise your hand and say, you know what, I want to get better at this. Because what I found so often is that sometimes people feel like I'm supposed to already be good at this, right? Like, and the higher up you go in the organization, the more it's true, where people are like, I'm pretty sure I should already know this. And if I admit I don't, then people are going to ask me, how have you been making your decisions then? So I am just going to just fake it till I make it. And so just kind of that acknowledgement as to most people are not very good at this. So it's perfectly okay to sign up for the class. And, I think that when I think about, like, I'm very passionate about this subject, right? Or I wouldn't be here. I see the power that you have when that light goes off, when things start to click, as you're like, oh, that's what it is, right? Like, that's how to think about it. That's what you do with this information. It's like, it's so powerful. And so I like being able to bring that excitement. Like, I love data, and I love the things you can do with it. And I love that most of it is actually just a few simple techniques. If you're just aware of, you're like already pretty far ahead. And then I also like bring the practical application, right? Like, as much as I love data and I love my job and I love my career, I'm not in it simply because I love the data. I love what you can do with it. I love being able to apply it. I love seeing the impacts of it. And so, like, I have very practical things as to, you might see this come up, right? Like in when you're looking at your metrics dashboard and somebody's giving you month over month numbers, you're like, oh, gee, the sky is falling, it dropped this much, right? If you simply know concepts of variation, it'll probably lower your blood pressure, right? As to the number's going to move some way, up, down, right? The real question as to, is it normal, is it not? And so just having those things in your tool belt. Yeah,
Yep.
so that's what's
I
exciting.
love it. Yeah, and to picking up on what you're saying there, lowering the blood pressure. I mean, people feel very nervous, like you're saying. They feel like there's something wrong with them if they don't know this, and so they're afraid to admit that. And this leads them to not say anything and not raise their hand. And actually relates to a question I'm seeing in the chat here from Jeff. Thanks for the question. Jeff Belding says, do you have good examples to help people understand that they don't know and to interest them in learning more? So maybe that's the other end of the spectrum, where some people feel like they know it all, or they want to make it seem like they do. How do we break down those sorts of barriers just to get people around to the point where they feel like it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to ask how to get past that and learn. Any thoughts about that? Getting people to the place where they are ready to learn and excited about that.
It's tricky, right? Like you can't walk up to somebody and be like, you clearly have no idea what you're talking about.
No, that'll backfire.
Right? Like,
that'll backfire.
bad idea. Don't do that. I think that what's worked for me has been recognizing when I'm in a situation where somebody kind of just clearly isn't at that level of isn't at that data literacy level that they probably should be at, right? Like, so it'll be kind of, I'll ask some probing questions or things like that, and the way they answer them will tell me where they're at. And then I try to help fill in the gaps for them. So I will explain more. I'll say, for example, okay, well, with this question that you have, and I've asked these questions, and now you've given me the root cause as to why you're so worried about this. Let me tell you my perspective on it. And I'll usually try to approach it as this is my perspective, not a you're wrong. And then they'll generally go along with it, right? Like okay, that makes sense, and you're the expert, right? Like I'm not challenging their expertise, right? I'm challenging because they're an expert in something, right? They're absolutely an expert in something, and that's why they have their job. And so I just kind of share with them some details as to that they might not have known. And normally, I'll actually try to make sure that we build tools in a way that makes it really clear. I try not to do things where it's very easy to be misinterpreted, right? So either it'll be a full-on story that will be told where you cannot misinterpret it, or the tools will be set up in such a way. And I've actually found that lots of people will start asking me questions as to well, why is this tool set up this way, right? And then I'll be like, let's talk about variation, which tends to be my favorite topic. Is talking about variation.
Oh, there's a book about that. I just happen to have it here within arm's reach. Have you heard of this one before?
Yes, it is on my shelf as well.
All right.
Yes, it is my absolute. Yep, it's right here.
You love that book. There we go. Oh my gosh, look at that. We have the same book, Understanding Variation. Right. Yep. The Key to Managing Chaos. It's a great book about control charts, or process behavior charts, as we sometimes call them. So
absolutely.
Earlier, is this normal variation? Is this some kind of an abnormal special variation in the way things are changing over time? Should we take note of that? Is this just what always happens? Then, okay, that's routine variation. Good to know. It may still be costly and it may be a problem for us to fix, but it's different than an outlier or some kind of a rising trend, right? So those concepts are so important. And I love your point about just having the conversation, recognizing their expertise, not coming at it from a confrontational point of view. If you realize someone needs to learn something, but also to your point, building into the tools, the explanation, building into the tools themselves, the orientation on what it is that you might be showing them. So we talk about that a little bit, because we know that, for example, let me just share this little example right here. I'll put my screen back on here, but picking up on what Anna's saying right there, this idea that maybe we can build into the tools the way to explain to someone in a hopefully not overly cumbersome way, what's going on. So let's say I wanted to give you a scatter plot comparing life expectancy and urbanization of countries. Well, if I just flash the scatter plot on the screen, I know from some research that I read from Pew Research that maybe a third of the people won't even really know what it is or how to read it. Okay, so knowing that, and assuming I'm communicating with a broad audience where I'm thinking that maybe there may be many people in that same boat where I'm going to show them data and they're not going to really be with me. Maybe I'll just say, let's start, and this could be a 20-second ramp up. Let's start by creating a dot for every country, and then we'll put them along the x-axis based on the life expectancy at birth. So we have some countries over here and some countries over here where people are expected to live longer. And we have all this white space up here. Why don't we move the dots vertically based on the percentage of people that live in a city? So, countries up here like Singapore, where a lot of the people live in a city. In fact, it's a city state, so 100% of them do. And other countries down here, maybe like South Sudan with a smaller percentage. And then, well, why don't we keep going? Let's maybe color them by the region that they're in. So we see, different regions here. Maybe we can also size those countries by how many people live there. So, okay, there's some bigger countries over here like China or India. And then let's play this forward to see, kind of what it looks like over time. So this approach, which took maybe a minute total, to me is a way to bring people along with me instead of just assuming that they know all the data, they get it, they've seen it, they're going to pick it up right away. Just give them 20 to 30 seconds, maybe a minute of orientation on what it is you're showing them. And, they can kind of get to the answer that way. And so those ways of bringing people along, I feel, build data literacy on our teams, because now people are having that light bulb moment, like you talked about. Oh, I get it. I'm with you. I'm following. And so those can be helpful sorts of approaches to just get people to where where we all need to be, understanding the data and maybe where we need to go. So those kinds of approaches we talk a little bit about. So, okay. So next question I got for you here. So besides taking a group course, this is only one way to maybe get started. You've worked with and probably know people professionally, personally, that want to break through that brick wall of data that they feel like they need to get past, but they don't know how. What are some other ways to get started? You can take a course, great. What else can you do?
I think the biggest thing that you can do, like if you're early in the journey, is being curious, right? So data is everywhere. Like you literally cannot get away from data and data techniques and like this whole data revolution that's happening around us. And probably at work or in personal life, you're coming across it every day, all the time. And so really kind of being mindful, like when you think of, I'm thinking of getting this new car, and then all of a sudden that type of car is everywhere that you see it. So just kind of being aware of, I would like to dig a little bit more into the data that's around me. You're going to start seeing more of it. And then when you have the opportunity, let's say you're reading an online article and it quotes a particular statistic, being kind of curious as to like going down and reading that footnote as where did that come from, right? Like, or clicking through onto the link as to the research paper that did it. And if you happen to have time reading it, and then you might find that this is interesting. The conclusions that the author of this paper came up with are completely different that ended up in the article. I wonder why that is. Or if you're at work or somebody provides you with a report or an outcome or an answer, just asking questions, I'm just curious. Like I'm not questioning your work, because that can, ruffle feathers. But it's like I'm just curious as to how did you do this? What tool did you use to build this out? Or what technique did you use to get to this answer, right? Data people quite often love to talk about the details and love to talk about the technical stuff, because a lot of times we're very discouraged. We're told don't talk about the details, right? Like nobody cares how smart you are.
Just scare everybody away.
Right? Yeah. So it's like if somebody actually asks a question, you'll be like, well, let me show you how I did this, right? So asking questions, just being very, very curious,
Curiosity.
You'll get pretty far, right?
Yeah, I'm seeing some comments in the chat about people really that resonating with them. This idea that you need to be able to ask questions and feel comfortable asking questions, feel comfortable just wanting to know more. And I think I think true experts, you'll see, that's what they do. They ask a lot of questions. They don't have any problem doing that. Don't have
Yeah.
any problem exposing their lack of understanding in a topic because they're secure enough to say, huh, interesting. I don't know. I'd love to know more about that. That means they're going to learn more, than the person who feels like they can't ask or raise their hand. So yeah, that to me is, I think that's the biggest personality trait to add to the mix here. Tenacity too, just the ability to continue to dig deeper and, deal with some of the frustration that may come from not understanding or not getting it or what have you, that security to feel like, hey, I've got what it takes. I just need to keep working at it. And maybe there's more people out there that can help me. Maybe there's another way I can look at this that would help kind of me have that aha moment, So those are awesome personality techniques that I think, really do help you, not just in becoming a more data savvy individual, but also just in general in life, right?
Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left here. So I do want to close with that link to where to register, as well as a little code we're giving, a discount code. But a couple quick questions I want to pick up on. So Ava asked about, levels. Which level is this? This is the fundamentals level that starts in January 10th, that goes for 8 sessions, 4 weeks. And that's really what I would call the data citizen. What we're going to do is continue every quarter. So then quarter 2, that's our plan right now. So we'll do a level 1 course in quarter 2, level 2 course in quarter 3, level 3 course in quarter 4. So by the time you're done in a whole year with us, you will have, acquired some actual tool working skills, really understood the visual language of data, and even got into the steps of kind of telling your own data stories. So this first course, though, we're not going to impose that kind of burden on everyone at the beginning. It's really just about learning to understand the concepts of data. What is the power of data and the value of applying it to a variety of different situations? So that's a great question. Another question here came through about the importance of explainability of the outcome and how important is that in your work. I'd be curious to get your answer on that, Anna, just real quickly.
It depends on the audience, right? In general, when I'm talking with non-data professionals, the explainability is king, is the most important thing. Even if we're building a model that's like a neural network, right? We'll still build that's even a black box to us. So I don't know why this thing did what it did. The building another simpler model, right? That is more explainable and will help us better relay the information to an end user is critical, because if there's certain things where they don't need to trust it, but when it's a decision support kind of thing, we need to be able to explain it. So it's super critical. If it's for like another data professional, what is explainability to them and what's an explainability to a non-data professional are two different things, right?
Yeah. No, explaining it at the level of your audience, so important.
Yes.
Okay, we're about to lose the recording here, so I'm just going to give one more little piece of info for you all. So if you want to join this course, there's way fewer spaces in the course than there are people on the webinar. We do have an early bird rate that's $150 less going through Friday. If you put Data Lit Live 50 in there, you get another $50 off. So this is the cheapest it'll be. If you wait till Monday, it'll go up a couple $100. So secure your spot if you want to really join on this journey starting next month. Kind of devote some of your time early in the year to building your data skills and getting started here. And so I want to thank you, Anna, for kind of working with us. I mean, it's such a honor for us to be able to have you and your expertise and your passion. I want to thank also all the participants that joined. Really nice to see so many people interested in this topic. And lastly, I just want to wish you all happy holidays, a safe and healthy time, whether you're traveling or staying home. All the best to you. Looking forward to interacting with you in the coming year. Reach out to us anytime. Contact at Data Literacy. Help us understand what we can do to help you, what's some questions you might have, or ways that we can partner together down the road. So with that, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful rest of your week, and take care. And thanks again, Anna. Much appreciated. Loved our session and talking with you today.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun.